And welcome to the Boombar on your Boom Radio NJ. It's been a minute. We've been away. And it's a pleasure to be back here. My name is Sola Rogers.
And my name is Ola Dolupo. You know, the one and only. Sorry, my voice seems to not be itself these days.
Well, apart from our voice not being itself, every other thing is in place. And I'm gladly asking you guys to join us on this 1 hour journey through the world of music, sports, politics, and everything in between. At the Boombar, we like to kick back, relax, and talk a lot of issues. We not only talk issues, we prefer solutions, and we basically, shed light on what's happening in and around us from a Nigerian perspective to a global stage.
Yep, and on that note, we're going to be talking about a few things, yeah? There are a few stuff that has popped up that we might talk about. I thought there was a list somewhere. Anyway.
There is a list.
Today is World Radio Day.
Yep.
Shout out to every radio person and everybody that's done radio, is doing radio. That we're going to talk about a little bit. There's a lot of politics issues that we're going to be back and forth on. It is politics season. It is basically 12 days to the general election. So yeah,
in Nigeria.
So that we're going to be talking about that. Lagos State. There's a few stories surrounding schools that we're going to be looking at. Also still talking about the Naira crunch and all that. Kano State, Kano governor has something to do to that also. And there are a few things as time goes on that we're going to be picking up, and I hope that we have enough time to tackle everything.
Well, without further ado, we're diving right into it.
Yeah, so the first things first is World Radio Day, and shout out to everybody that has ever done radio, that is doing radio. It is probably one of the largest ways of means of communication, even way more than TV. These days, it's coming from how the huge boxes to having it on the littlest of phones and littlest of devices now. So it's a beautiful evolution to see how radio was done then and how radio is now. Take, for example, Boom Radio. A few years ago, there was probably not, in Nigeria, not a lot of things or not a lot of internet radios.
Yeah.
So it's really an amazing thing to see how the media, especially radio that we're talking about today, February 13th, has really evolved. Now, the theme for this year is radio and peace. And this focuses on the role of radio as an independent medium of peacemaking. The sub-theme of the day are radio in conflict prevention. And peace building and support to independent radio.
Okay. All right. World Radio Day. You're really focused more on people like yourself who are practitioners in the business. And for a minute, before we even look at the theme of World Radio Day, I want to quickly say a big thank you to the people who actually listen to radio. Yeah. The people who actually make it worth our while. They in Yoruba language is very expressive, and it paints a picture. There's a way Yoruba describes radio. It says "asoro magbesi," which in direct translation or in English means the medium that talks, that doesn't wait for a response or a reply. I know TV in Yoruba is described as amóhùnmáwòrán. a platform that takes your voice and your image and puts it out. So in Asoro Magbisi's own case, which is radio, you are speaking to a mass media, and technology as at that time was one-way communication. It was just you talking, you putting out, you playing music. Everything was going out. There was no feedback. There were no phone lines. There was no internet. There was none of those things. That's what radio was. And one of my favorite rappers has a song called, I'm trying to remember the title, but there's a line where it keeps going on about how radio was, they kept on saying something about radio going to die or something, like music killed the radio or TV killed radio or something. There was a time when it was believed, because radio came before TV. There was a time when it was believed that the advent of TV will kill radio. But funny enough, rather than kill radio, it actually made radio more popular. Radio spread more and got to more people. Yeah. The fact that technology has brought TV to everybody's palm now doesn't mean that radio doesn't even go to other places.
Radio still seems to have a larger form of audience than TV.
Thank you.
It doesn't look like it's going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. Now that streaming services are popped up everywhere, radio is going to die. Radio is still as relevant as it used to be.
Radio is still as relevant. Then one thing, we've seen a lot of evolving of radio and TV merging.
Yes. Now the lines are blurred now.
Yeah, the issue of just a voice behind radio
is beyond that.
Is way off that.
Right now. I'm glad to have been a part of radio when you could actually walk into a studio
in your PJs,
in anything. And people would enjoy the program. They would listen. They don't even know what you're wearing, and it doesn't even matter. But we're doing radio at a time now that we're streaming the videos, the pictures being taken, and everything works side by side. Radio is becoming TV is becoming radio on many platforms. And on that note, we are glad to be a part of the business and talking about World Radio Day. So that's why I just wanted to lay a little bit of that. Now, talking about the theme, it's a carefully thought out plan. They're talking about promoting peace and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things why you would really appreciate the power of radio is the kind of content that we put out and the kind of people that you bring to help propagate and push this content. Again, it's a clarion call to broadcasters to please stay responsible and be careful of the kind of information you put out, how you put it out, and what exactly you put out.
It's very interesting. Why I like this year's theme, especially using Nigeria as a case study.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Nigeria and the world at large, let's be honest with ourselves, we think that it's just Nigeria that has major insecurity issues or ethnic issues. Everybody at this point has some major issue they're dealing with. Take the United States, for example, and their balloons issues.
Oh, yeah.
And their flying objects.
Canada has the same.
Yeah, do you understand? Right now, there is a lot of issues that are going around the world. There's still the Russia and the Ukraine issue. There's a lot of issues in the EU. Everybody has like their own peculiar issue. But where I think that the media can help, and the media has probably erred a bit, is that I saw a video a few days ago. I don't want to mention names. I think I sent it to you. I don't know if I saw. I think I sent it to you on Twitter. Where a particular...
Okay, I think it days before you sent it, but I saw what you're talking about.
Was literally scolding all the kind of
a
things,
TV presenter,
the kind of things that how we seem to not be able to remove our biases when we are talking about things. And the honest truth is that because there are a lot of people that listen to the media, and a lot of people see whatever comes out from the media as the truth. So which it is supposed to be, because it should be proper information. Now we're at a point where you need to sieve out what you get from the media.
Very importantly.
Do you understand? What the media is information. And we shouldn't get to a point where we're sieving stuff out. But sadly, that's where we are at this point now. And if we really are supposed to propagate peace and peacemaking, we can't continue to be biased in our reporting. We can't continue to be one-sided. We can't continue to do things all in the name of, these days, the English is investigative journalism. Mm-hmm. And you sit in one place and see things in just one spectrum. Just one color of the spectrum, and that's it.
So I'm going to not totally agree with Dolupo, and maybe not even necessarily the devil's advocate. All the examples of what is wrong with broadcasting and journalism that she has pointed out, the two examples she's referring to have nothing to do with radio. It's TV and wannabe.
Oh yeah, no.
Investigative journalism.
I agree.
You get.
I didn't even.
Yeah. So it's World Radio Day, and I'm still.
I remember. Okay, let me give you another example where I felt it was wrong. I was in a cab a few days ago, going somewhere. Yeah, and the man was listening to radios, and then there was the show. It was the guest was talking about the Naira, the federal government case, and the Supreme Court, and the state governors and all that. And obviously the man did not like what the states had done. The man did not enjoy. In fact, the man was going on that the case, the CBN does not even have to do anything. They don't even have to obey the Supreme Court, that the case is between the federal government. Obviously, it was obvious he had something to say. He made very valid points. But maybe because of me as a radio person, the only thing that told me was, why is this radio station, why don't they have somebody else
to balance the
story? And it just came off as wrong. As much as, trust me, the person had very valid points. But that show, about an hour show, is not sounded, was a one-sided show.
You listened for the whole hour?
Yes, I was traveling.
I'm happy for you. All right.
And the person will not turn off his radio.
All right. It's World Radio Day right here on your Boom Radio NG, and we're talking about, there's so many other things that we're definitely going to be talking about, but this segment here is about World Radio Day. That's what we've been talking about for the past couple of minutes and all of that. Everything boils down to professionalism at the end of the day. You don't even need to be regulated. You don't need the Broadcasting Commission or the government to tell you
this thing. And as I was listening to the show, I'm like that. Only if they had gotten someone for this, this would have been a fantastic show.
Yeah, so I get that part and everything. So these are the issues with journalism and broadcasting and radio in itself. But we are also calling on colleagues and practitioners and even listeners to all be responsible. We all need to be careful. The kind of information that you put out, is it the truth? And what's the relevance of it? And what are you trying to achieve? These are things that we need to clarify and put it out there. But of course, like you said, the flaw with the program you were listening to is that it was not a balanced opinion.
Yeah.
And at times, those things are done deliberately by practitioners just to push an agenda. You get. And these are the things that we're talking about.
Okay, so I think we should move on to something else. And one of the things I wanted to move on to is the menace should I call it menace now? Because it's becoming annoyingly rampant. And then you're wondering like, okay, what's happening now? Now remember that okay, let me put out one of the stories. So a few days ago, a story broke of a 12-year-old girl dying after she went for her school's inter-house sports ceremony on February 9th at Agege Stadium. Her school's Chrisland School, the one at Ikeja. And I read a statement that the girl's father put out. I watched video that the girl's mother put out. And according to the woman was the one on ground. The school bus had come to pick her daughter in the morning. And then she said she even went there early because the girl had accused her last time of not coming and all that. So she got there early, they had not started. And of course now, you get to your child's school or an event, you're looking out for your child. You can't find your child. So she's like that, back and forth, she was going up and down. That as she wanted to cross to the other side, she noticed the school bus had zoomed off. And she was even still complaining, that how do you drive like that with the children and all that? Long story short, someone told her that she found out that her daughter was the one in the school bus that had zoomed off. After finding out where exactly her daughter is, she ended up seeing the bus somewhere around the area, and then the daughter girl was dead. Basically, a 12-year-old. That according to her, there was nothing wrong with her child that morning. Now, there was also a statement from the school that there was some form of that the girl had complained of ill health on 22nd of January. Which I'm just putting it out there before I, and so maybe they were trying to explain themselves. I don't know how much of an explanation that is. Now, as of today, the school is closed. Sadly, there are a lot of children that are going to have schools, that are going to have their school year disrupted. The school is shut by the Lagos state government, and the state has also ordered a coroner's inquest into, and now there's a postmortem that has to be carried out on the girl, 12-year-old. That's so sad. So that's the original story, or that's the story that has been put out.
So first things first, my and our condolences to the family of this young Nigerian that has been cut short in her prime. Again, another unnecessary death has been recorded. And the story about her being ill on the 22nd of January might be true, but that might not be related to what happened to her on Saturday.
22nd of January to February 9th.
Yeah, it might be true. But that
it's possible. It's a while ago.
It might be true.
We're dealing with children here, even adults.
It might be true. But you see, one of the best things that people should do is to stay professional. In being professional, you're definitely going to speak the truth, and you're going to simplify and uncomplicate things that are complicated or seemingly complicated. Okay, let me uncomplicate this too. A child was taken to the stadium for an inter-house sports. Did you put everything in place?
In place. That's the start. That's where you start from.
The school, sadly, we don't like calling brands, but this is where we are, and we have to say it as it is. Chrisland School. It's not a small school, it's a big school. And
So group of schools.
Yeah, for a school that is a group of schools, we assume that you know everything that you're doing when it comes to child safety.
Mm-hmm.
So was everything put in place? I have attended events that have large turnout of people that they don't bother to set up medical stands. People still believe that it's not necessary.
The one that amazes me is, like you said, when you put different things in place. There's an inter-house sport with children. You see, with adults, injuries happen. Injuries can happen. With children...
Your mic, actually. I was meant to say your mic.
With children, injuries will happen. There's nothing you can do about it. It is what it is. Small or big, injuries will happen. And in the first place, the reason why you are even in school alone, you're not outside school, you should have a sick bay, all this medical personnel on ground. Now talk less of when you're not out and where the purpose of what they're doing is to play. And you think that people will not. So, whatever happened to the girl, she fell, whatever it is, there was no form of first aid. Are we saying that Chrisland cannot afford to rent an ambulance? That should have been there, standby. I remember there was a particular year where I was in secondary school and there was, of course, inter-house sports competition. And I remember a senior, fastest guy in school. He ran all races. He was like, when you're looking forward to, and especially in secondary school, what people look forward to is senior boys race. They are the very interested ones. And in the middle of, I think, a 200-meter race, fastest guy in school falls. What happens? I think his ligament tore. Or something. Do you understand? It happens. These things happen. So you don't have to think of somebody dying before you even get those things in place. That's one. Two, there's stories back and forth of how the allegations of how the girl was electrocuted while trying to buy something around the stadium. Are we saying that the school could not provide what these children were going to eat? Or tell them bring things from home?
No. You can't rule out the fact that children will want to buy things that are not necessarily food. We all did it when we were young. We wanted to buy ice cream, we wanted to buy popcorn and all of these things. So
I'm sorry.
You can't rule that out.
I'm sorry.
What shouldn't be happening?
You are not allowed to buy those things. You are not allowed.
Okay, so fine. You cannot.
What if a child was poisoned? Because they're out of their comfort zone.
You see, I want to be real here. You went to maybe one of the best schools in Nigeria. That's fine. Your school was very strict about those things. That's fine. But what is our reality? We were given. There was a time when I was in private school, and there was a time when I was in public school. I remember when I was in public primary school, our parents would give us money because food was being sold during break time by appointed vendors within the school premises. There was a time when they used to bring food to us. We'll be sat in our classes and they'll bring food. But the time when you go and buy the food and you come back to eat it, there's a long break and a short break. When we got older, and I'm not talking secondary, I'm talking primary school, we became the ones that would keep that money and not buy the food in school. And on our way home, we're going to buy rock buns or rough buns or whatever that thing was called then. odd cross bonds. Eventually, I found out, but we used to call it rock bonds or rough bonds or whatever. Were the ones that started buying gala and whatever.
To a large extent, this is a school that is.
I'm telling you, you're zeroing in.
Bro.
Yeah,
it's not a public school.
That's not.
It's not.
That's not how I'm going to approach this. I'm trying to say that. You see, look, what I'm trying to say is, eyebrow, low brow, whatever brow. Vendors coming through is not the problem.
I think
the vendors are usually vetted. They are screened. You're talking eyebrow. Okay. So it's not just like anybody walks into the stadium and says, I want to set up a stand. No. You own the stadium for that period of time. So anything that comes through the gates is yours. It's yours to vet and approve or disapprove. You can go to the stadium management and say, I don't know these people. We didn't invite them. We don't want them. We want them off.
So the school still didn't do what they were supposed
to do. That's exactly what I said earlier about being professional and covering all the bases. So the gist, according to people and according to students who were there, is that the late young Whitney was electrocuted when she went to buy popcorn or something funny like that. Now, again, if you've been to events in this country, and I have been to several, and I've organized several, there are times when the PowerPoint or power units are not working. You need to run cable from one place to another, join wires here and there, naked wires flying up and down. These are the issues. But remember again, like I said, if you stay professional and you keep it real, you would not be exposing yourself or other people to these dangers.
Children,
so
for that matter.
The issue for me is not the fact that there are vendors that could have poisoned children with their food there. Is that there are vendors that the school permitted that did not cover all the bases, that did not have maybe a safety checklist. You can't look. We all know how children are. You even take them to the highest of all brow places, and they are looking for God knows what. Because it is in a young mind to be inquisitive and to always want this and that. Now, she probably wasn't the first person that went to that vendor. Probably wasn't the last. I'm checking online and I'm seeing now that people still went to school in that so-called school today. This came in about an hour ago, and they're saying that people dropped off their children today. They went to school. School opened. Now, the person who pronounced, that's Lagos State government, you pronounce the school being shut. There are allegations of the fact that the school was open today. Now, let's put that aside. If you are a parent and you hear that a child was electrocuted or a child had died at, is it not your job to protect your child and not even take that child to school today of all this?
It's scary enough that you say,
you know. So let's look at it. There's a guy, Omo Political Show, on Twitter that says, in 2018, a teacher sexually molested a 2-year-old child at Chrisland Schools. Yeah. In 2022, 10-year-olds decided to make a sex tape. I didn't watch the sex tape, but we also how that story went. And this actually happened.
That was Chrisland
It was Chrisland School. And in 2023, of course, Whitney Adeniran died. One of the touching parts of this is how her father is quoted to have said that he gave the school a child that was alive, and they sent back to him the body of his child. Is there something wrong with my microphone? You know. Anyhow you view this thing, somebody somewhere did not do their job right. And
lots of people
and as we stand now, a young child
had to pay for their life.
She paid the ultimate price.
It's sad, yeah, because like you said, I think that the Ministry of Education needs to do a lot of work, and I know that the federal ministry can do a lot. The honest truth is there are a lot of private schools these days, and we know that basic education falls on the purview of the state government. So yeah, the state governments need to do a lot. I don't know if it is a lot is rampant in Lagos alone, or it's because there is a lot of media presence in Lagos.
It's not a Lagos thing.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I wanted to support a part that you're making, but when you're done making your point, I'll come in.
I said that. As we were just still talking about this, yesterday, was it yesterday? Or today, a story of another school.
Before you go to that story, because this is tied to what you said earlier, at Sugar Yob on Twitter said, children are not disposable. The Nigerian education system must evolve. Also, tip 2 is not far-fetched. She put out 4 tips. It's one of the things I pushed for via the independent panel, in quotes, that oversaw the inquiry into my sexual abuse at Olashore International School. Now, this is what at Sugar Yob put out. Miss Sugar Yob. Olashore School is another big school and it's not based in Lagos. She went ahead, one of the 4 pictures that she put out. If you shudder seeing a sign that says your car is at owner's risk, why do you feel comfortable when a school does the same with your kids? And I know you also discussed that before. You get into a public space, a supermarket, a mall, an hotel,
spend my money,
and they tell you cars parked at owner's risk.
You must be unwell.
Now,
you must be unwell.
Some of those places,
my car is at
they charge you money to come in. Some of them is free. You drive in, and just where you are parking, smack dab in front of the sign, it says cars parked at owner's risk. Here in Lagos, Nigeria, and other parts of Nigeria.
You know that one of the reasons why, when at times when you have too much money, I don't have anything to really use some money for. Some of the things I want to do in this life, is to initiate some court cases. And one of it is that stupid sign. I cannot come into your premises. I didn't park on the road though. Into your premises. Come to spend my money for you. Or transact business, and then you will now tell me that my car is at my risk.
Yeah, so what those people are telling you is that all we want is your money, and we don't care what you lose in the process. And it's the same thing that at Sugar Yob is referring to.
Because I think that somebody about the schools just saw that thing, put it there, and then we have turned it to.
Oh yeah, it's the standard now. Cars parked at owner's risk.
I think it is rubbish. We're not ready for that conversation, but I think it is complete and utter rubbish. Anyway, now, so you're telling me also that if I take my child to a school, it's at my risk.
Yeah, that's what they're telling you.
Anyway, so talking about this story, another story, all the way at this is a Loyal school in Ijushaga, is saying that a school is going on like nothing happened after an 8-year-old was molested by a driver. Then the father of the 8-year-old came to school, and this same driver allegedly killed the father of the daughter.
When this story broke this morning, we looked at it. I looked at it, and I was afraid. I was afraid at the possibility of this happening to any child. And think about it this way. There was a time when I used to go out for early morning walks, as early as 5 a.m.
Yep.
I'm on the road. And I noticed that there were school buses. In fact, that the only form of traffic I saw in and around my estate and my neighborhood were either some people who were probably rushing off to work that early. Maybe they were going to the island and they had to leave as early as 5 a.m. or school buses. Most times it was just school buses that I saw. And there was a day I was forced to make a video because a bus almost ran me over and a couple of other people who were out that early too, because the guy was driving like a madman. I've always been worried about the school bus system, especially when it comes to private schools. You know, that you're picking up a child that early, 5:30 a.m. for an assembly that does not start until
it's probably an explanation about how they're picking a lot of people.
Yes.
And before they get to the school.
I still have a problem with it still, regardless of that explanation. I get the explanation, but this is my view. I have a problem with it. The fact that a child has to
The issue
be
I
up,
even have with it.
be up in the care of some so-called person. I'm going somewhere with this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, this story about the Luyo school in Iju is that from the school, the driver had picked different children. And now most schools try to create a check and balance by making sure that every school bus has a bus auntie or a bus nanny.
Mm-hmm.
But it is obvious, again, when I say that we stay professional and we keep standards up, it's obvious that this particular school didn't have such a check.
Yeah.
So the story is that a child, 8-year-old, was not dropped off at home by the driver. Driver takes the child to his own house. Says, "Oh, call me your husband. You're my wife," and blah blah. And God knows, sit on my lap, and God knows all sorts of stuff that an 8-year-old can only explain the way an 8-year-old would explain. And the mother, Mabel Olorunfemi, that's her name, speaks to her husband about it and tells her husband, "Look, this is what our child said about what happened." And guess what? They go to school, like Dolupo had pointed out. And in his anger, the man slapped the driver or tried to slap the driver or whatever. And the driver responded in kind or even with a higher force. Again, you're not supposed to employ anybody. I'm not saying that people cannot be a flight risk or they can't disappear without guarantors and all of that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I brought out this 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. story of bus drivers is that at that time of day, even during the day, you see them drive like mad people.
Like mad people, exactly.
A bus driver had driven something that I felt was stupid in front of my house once. And there was a number on the bus. I couldn't catch the number, but I saw the address of the school. So I drove that morning to the school, somewhere around here. And when I got there, I saw the bus outside. I went into the school. I asked to see the proprietress or the headmistress. I was shown the headmistress, the head teacher. And I laid a complaint. While I was talking, the driver walked in. And the woman was like, "Oh, look at what they're saying you did and all of that." And I was telling them that you're one of our best drivers.
If you're one of the best.
And
what?
She quickly said that. And the guy was like, "Oh, that they shouldn't mind me. That he just blocked one gate for a few seconds, then he moved and blah, 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 blah." Bottom line is that I only wasted my time going to that school because I thought I was doing it for the parents and the children and all. Second time, I picked a number off a bus that was driving rough around Berger here. I called the company, the transport company. I said, "Your bus number, blah, blah, blah." The person said to me, oh, that driver, it doesn't do that. It doesn't drive like that. Because you see on those school buses, they say, if my driving is bad, call this number and everything.
I think that is probably a requirement, maybe from the Ministry of Education or something. That's the.
But even other companies do it. I think whatever they are doing, even if it's a requirement, other transportation companies do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So maybe
it's
it's just a requirement.
They don't take the feedback serious.
It's not they don't use the feedback. It's just.
It's not important to them.
It's not important.
So anything you say, you have only said it because you wanted to talk.
That they said that you have to put those things there. I won't be surprised. That's the reason why. But basically, also there was another story of a child in a school in Ibadan a few days ago as well, of her head being shaved off and she taken, and then there's some sort of like an incision on her head, 2-year-old, and all that. And I'm like, what do these schools do? Who are the kind of people that, because left to me, this class teacher of that child needs to be arrested.
And the owners of the school.
The owners of the school. And even if the owners of the school are not involved, the truth is, if you want people to put their children in your care, then you should be able to give them the optimum security. You should be able to vet the people that are going to be with these children. Because at the end of the day, everything boils down on the schools. The schools, especially private schools these days, collect ridiculous amounts of money. And I cannot pay you ridiculous amounts of money and there will be something wrong with my child. It does not make any sense.
Okay, so what are the practical things that can happen in a situation for everybody that's watching or listening to us? You know, we're talking about real life situations here that have to do with private schools or schools, and how some children have had to pay the ultimate price. Some children
remember the story of the Oromoni boy.
Yeah, he paid the ultimate price too. Some children have been violated. Now, in another case, a parent had even ended up losing his own life. Now we're talking about how some form of fetish or whatever has been performed on a child that has been placed in your care. A 2-year-old is most likely in a crash, you know, and look at what you've done. You get, again, you cannot stop people from being evil, but you can actually deal with their evil acts, because there's supposed to be laws, you know, guarding against such actions. What are the practical things or practicable things that can be done in this scenario? What exactly can be done?
I think that
has anybody really even taken up any of these cases? Have they gone to court?
Exactly.
Have they used the law, the long arm of the law? Have you really deployed it? You know, because again, it almost seems as if there are no consequences. Like the state government in Lagos, at some point they were like, "Oh, we're shutting down this school." Then they shut down the school. Then a few weeks after, the school is opened and everything is back to normal. I'm not saying that schools should be shut permanently. I'm just saying that shouldn't there be repercussions for every action, good or bad?
The thing for me is schools need to start doing exactly what they're being paid to do. I think that as much as school is a business, the way I see some of these things, I feel that a lot of these schools are really just about profit. Because if it's not just about profit, how much really is it? How difficult is it? Or how much would it cost you to get a ready-made ambulance? Because you say maybe. Let's even assume, yes, that this girl at the inter-house sport got electrocuted. There's a very high possibility, if there was first aid,
She would have survived.
she would have survived.
Most definitely.
Even if there will be noise, at least she would be alive to say something. Why can't we put in... Remember the David Oromoni case about how the way the case was, it was obvious that there were not enough adults that were in a hostel to look after these children. Yeah? So I think that schools need to actually start doing what they are really meant to do. You cannot just... You see people employ... You see the schools employ people on what's the word now? Unemployable people. All in the name of maximum profit and cheap labor. Because you pay them peanuts. After you've collected thousands and thousands and thousands from parents. We see it from teachers to the domestic staff, people that are not well trained. But because you give them peanuts, you would employ them either way. And you're dealing with children's lives. Do they even do background checks on the people that they employ? I think that schools need to do better. And also the state governments, I think they need to do a lot more clamping down on the schools. Maybe if they clamp down on a few of them, the rest of them will have straight heads.
I agree.
Anyway, so we definitely will follow this story. We'll see what's happening. Anyway, according to Lagos State, the school has been shut. They've already ordered postmortem and the coroner's inquest into what happened to these very young girls. life. Very, 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 very sad story, because at the end of the day, a 12-year-old girl is late. Let's move on quickly from that. Let's move on to a bit of election. We're counting down quickly to the presidential elections in Nigeria, about 12 days more to the elections. Now, the Independent National Electoral Commission has now come out today to say that about 240 polling units out of, I think, 178,000, if I'm correct,
Yeah.
do not have registered voters. They're saying that, according to him, that these people did not come out to register. So they don't have PVCs. So there's no point going to put polling units where there's nobody to vote.
It's a case of different strokes for different folks, where you find that in some parts of Nigeria, there are people clamoring for polling units to be set up closer to them than where they had voted previously. And now it happened, and of course, some people didn't even bother to turn up. And this is the case. But again, it makes it very real. It shows that there's a possibility of voter apathy being at an extreme. And this is what you see when 240.
That it ranges from our 1 to 12 polling units in each of 28 states and the federal capital, except Taraba and Imo State, that have 38 and 34 polling units respectively each in those states that there are no people. For me, as much as you might call it voter apathy, also realize that I feel that voting, as much as it is a right, it is also a choice. So they choose not to vote.
So it still comes down to voter apathy if it's a choice not to vote.
Yeah. I see a lot of people, and it's a conversation. I see a lot of people on social media going, you must go out to vote, you must this, white people must, you cannot like this person, you cannot vote this person, you have to vote that person. And I'm like, we need to get to a point where we know that we're a democracy, that's one. And democracy is people have choices in who to vote for, and choices in whether to vote or not to vote.
At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to.
That's what it
Again,
is.
everything comes with consequences. So if you vote and your candidate wins, at least you feel that you contributed a part to it. But if you vote and your candidate doesn't win, also, you still have done your own part. You know?
I you know, that is something that I'd picked it up, and this was the Minister of Works and Housing. And since I heard him say that thing, it always reverberated in my mind that democracy in itself also is flawed. That democracy is the tyranny of the majority over the minority. And that's the honest truth. There's really nothing you can say about it. It is what it is. As much as it is a democracy, some people will not like the outcome of the results.
That's what it is, and we will continue to do our part here. We are going to be covering, we're going to be projecting, and we're going to be analyzing and also preferring solutions. You know, so but at the end of the day, there's no perfect system of governance. You know, but whatever it is, you make it work. You just make sure that you do your own part, play your own part.
Okay. Now I was going to, before we move on to a bit of other political stories, I just want to put it out there that Governor Ganduje has now shut down a Wellcare Supermarket over refusal to accept old Naira notes. I think that's a good thing. Remember, for people that do not know, there's an injunction by the Supreme Court that the federal government, through the CBN, is supposed to halt the Naira redesign policy, so that we're not supposed to spend the old Naira notes from February 10th. And I saw that firsthand, and I think it was on Friday in Ibadan. I was in a store. I was doing something in a store, and there was a lady selling food beside her, which I think that we need to be adding common sense to some of the things that we do. So she sells food, pretty big time. Looked like someone that big food vendor, yeah. And she was yelling and shouting that she doesn't collect transfers, and she also does not want old Naira note. And the person doing some that I went to the store where I was, that said, the woman has said that we need to be adding common sense to some things. Number one, even if you're illiterate, one of the reasons you send your children to school is so that they can help you. You ask them, or listen to radio. The woman was also telling me that they had suspended it, but that even if they've not suspended it, she knows that if you take it to the bank, which is true, they will still accept it. Especially someone like her that is selling perishables. And true to type, at least I counted not less than 10 people that came there with old Naira notes or wanted to pay for transfer that she turned back. She now said, if you are going to do that kind of thing, then you'll probably not make food today, or you make a very small quantity. But here you are. You have so much food, you are turning people back. What's going to happen to your food? And I thought of it like, that's actually not smart.
It's not about being smart. She's being safe in her own book, in her own world. She's being safe. You get, but if only people open their minds to realize and understand that, it goes beyond your sentiments.
Yeah.
What are the facts of the matter?
Around, yeah.
But at the end of the day, the whole blame still lies at the doorstep of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and especially the governor of the Central Bank, Mr. Emefiele, who, since I saw a skit where some guy was calling his name like 100 different ways, whatever, has actually failed all of us. And
it's not the first time Nigeria changing cards.
For them to come out to tell us, oh, there's a shortage of paper for printing money. Oh, they didn't envisage this kind of wala, shows that they have failed.
Okay, so
I heard that he's meeting with the president again
today. My question is, when I saw that headline, I almost didn't believe it, because I'm like, if there's shortage of paper, then why were you insisting?
It's just
on the February 10th.
Okay, so now
remember, before that, it was the president that gave an extension. So why were you insisting? You knew? So it doesn't make any sense.
Again, we need to understand the entire scope of Nigeria's cash flow issues and Naira redesign concept. One of the things that could have happened, that should have happened, or that they could have done and didn't do, is to play up the options that were available. The e-Naira had been created in anticipation of this, but they didn't tell us that's why they did it. You get, they just made it look like, oh, we're moving with the times. It's not cryptocurrency, but it's the way to go and all of that. But you saw that the thing had not been accepted fully, and even if you didn't have an ulterior motive, you're trying to force people to go on those platforms. That's not how it works.
It should be a choice. People should be able to say,
that's not how it works.
That's how, if I want to use it or I don't.
You should actually use this to sell it more and say, guys, half of your problems are solved if you just get the e-Naira app, and all of that. We're not even talking about the other issues that some of us are going through now. We all have international services that we subscribe to that we can't even pay for. We can't even pay for, because the cards that we use, that you guys made us use for years, don't work anymore. All part of these policy changes. And the options that we have are not as palatable, because you want me to get a Naira, a dollar denominated card with dollar that I'm going to buy from the parallel market at a higher rate, then come and put in my dollar denominated card at the official rate. Help me make sense of this. I want to pay for Apple music, I want to pay for Streamlion and all the other online services,
Nice.
I need to use a dollar denominated card now. Okay, it's fine. But now I cannot get the dollar because you are going to say that I'm not traveling. So you're not going to sell it to me at the I have to go to the parallel market, buy the dollar at 700 or whatever, then come and pay it into my account at 400 and something naira.
It's not making sense. Yeah.
I'm losing about 60 to 50% value. Let's think about these policies that we come up with.
I don't think they're thinking these things through. But anyway,
which is no way.
Go and spend your old Naira note, please. Thank you very much. At least, not until we hear anything.
Pay it into your account if you can. You don't stress yourself, I beg.
Go and spend it. Today, yesterday I got new Naira notes. I gave it out expecting change and all that. It was all old Naira notes. I say,
what are you going to do?
There's nothing I can do except I don't want the money again.
Don't spend your old Naira note anyhow. If you don't have to spend it, don't spend it. Take it to a bank. They cannot, all the noise that they are making, they cannot fight CBN. They can't fight Supreme Court.
Exactly.
They cannot.
Anyway, quickly, before we go, the DSS has announced that they've invited former Aviation Minister Fani-Kayode for questioning. He had made, this was a statement where he had made that said that some presidential candidates and some generals were plotting to scuttle this year's elections and carry out a coup. Well, he said that 3 days ago because he had tweeted about newspaper reports alleging that the PDP presidential candidate Atiku was secretly meeting with army generals.
It's election season. A lot of unguarded statements will be made. Will be made. But please, when you allege, know that you have proof to back it up.
Exactly. I think coup is a huge story for you to just come up and just say without proof. And I honestly think that DSS is just doing their job. It's not an arrest. I think it's more of come and explain your statement, which to me makes perfect sense. Anyway, quickly also, the Lagos government, just wanted to put it out, the Lagos government has now restricted trucks from Dorman Long and Ojuelegba bridges. We know that for the past few weeks there's been a lot of, which it has always been a thing with this bridge, especially these two bridges in Lagos, of trucks falling down, which honestly, I've always said that it doesn't even make any sense, especially those heavy duty trucks. Going up is an inclined plane. You're already at a disadvantage. You're already stressing yourself out. There are alternatives at the bottom. What are you looking for? So
this is what it is. It is time for the state government to take some tougher decisions. They need to be real with themselves. Mm-hmm. Now, you're asking those trucks to leave a bridge that is free and go down Ojuelegba and Jibo that is not free. Look into how you can expand the bottleneck at Ojuelegba. If it needs buying those houses around Ojuelegba to make that bottleneck wider, to contain more buses and trucks. Because you're talking about a city that has more population than some countries. It's time for Lagos to be more real with itself. You're doing some okay work, but you need to do more. If you could remove the roundabout at Allen roundabout, then look at Ojuelegba with the bridge. With the bridge, 2-lane bridges side by side, but down the bridge it's 2 lanes. So what are you talking about? And everything always converges into a bottleneck. You see all those buildings in and around the lake, but state government needs to buy them off and make. Sorry.
What happens to the? Okay, no.
What happens to what?
Okay, that's true. But there's a bank right by.
Bank, hospital, whatever it is that is there, they need to buy up all that prop. No, if you like relocate, don't. I'm not saying acquire. I said I'm not saying that they should acquire with force. I'm saying they should buy it so that the owners don't lose out completely. But look at the greater good. The fact that if you expand the bottleneck at Ojuelegba, the trucks will be attracted to going down. That's one too. I grew up in Surulere. I spent my entire growing up years in Surulere. Those barriers have been off and on. a few years ago and several years after, almost every government in Lagos spends a lot of money trying to stop people from crossing the highways and all those places, and they spend money putting barriers in place that people destroy. There was a day I was driving past and I actually saw someone pull down a metal fence. Yes, they did that. So I assume that those barriers are also destroyed, or they get damaged and the state doesn't return them. Because if you go into the Alhaji Marshal axis of there are bridges there too that trucks should not climb, and they go on them.
Yeah.
And you see the barriers there, they are there and they're not there. Yeah, one day they are there. So what they do is you must make it a standard that no trucks on any of these bridges.
Once there's a major barrier there, there's no way for them to go.
Make it a standard.
Yeah, make it
so maintain those things. But again, expand all the bottlenecks. Every single bottleneck, from Ojuelegba to the National Stadium, you need to acquire more space and more land and open up the bottlenecks everywhere in Lagos, from Lekki to Iyanokpaja to Ikeja to Oshodi. Just open up all the bottlenecks, and it will cost you some money, but it is something that will make life easier and it will ease up traffic.
Exactly. Quickly, finally, before we go, it has been announced that the Southwest Labour Party has collapsed the structure into the APC. Very interesting story, though.
It's not something that we can actually
it's not something,
touch on
maybe it's something
but
that
I was in Ibadan yesterday and I touched about 4 or 5 different major parts of Ibadan. I went from the toll gate to Alakia, through Iwo Road, went through Bodija, I went through Moliti. I went through a lot of parts of Ibadan yesterday. And I want to commend the people of Ibadan for being the only place I've seen in recent times, and I'm adding Abuja because I was in Abuja a few months ago, where there is the presence of more political parties than any other part of Nigeria that I have seen. And I stand to be corrected. I'm talking about the places that I have seen. In Ibadan, you find billboards of Accord Party a lot. You find ADP, ADC, and the others, and a lot of APC, a lot of PDP, a few NNPP posters, not billboards, and very few Labour.
But there are a lot of other parties.
But there are other parties.
They're very pronounced.
They're pronounced. Like I'm so impressed, and I said, "Oh my God, this is what you want to see in a democracy where people have options and choices."
Okay, and on that note, that is all we're able to take today on the Boombar. Thank you for listening. Thank you very, very much for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow at 3 p.m. West African time to give you another wonderful edition of the Bar with plenty of stories and updates as well. So please have a beautiful, beautiful day ahead.
Thank you.